All right, everybody. So we are here today to talk about the course registration parent information night for next year. During this presentation, I'll be talking about the registration form that will be sent out later on this week and the specifics in terms of what options you will have available to choose for your students. So to start us off, the reason why we really want to emphasize the importance of middle school as the students transition to high school and maybe even post-secondary pursuits like college, university, is because middle school is really the time where students get to learn a little bit more about themselves, how they study best, what they need to focus on, and really become more independent for themselves. And so they really want to, or we really want to help them develop these skills. When it comes to some of these pursuits or some of these needs regarding academic needs, social emotional needs, and career needs. And so today I'm going to be talking to you about a lot of different options that are going to be available for your students and what these options represent as they go into high school. First option that I'm going to be talking about is your students' English or your students' classes, actually. So for next year and moving forward even into high school, your students' list of courses is going to look very similar to what you see here on screen. English class, a math class, science, history, PE, and an elective. And so a lot of what these classes are normally called core classes. And so your students are going to be going through very similar classes when they get to even high school. So we really want to prepare them for, that amount of work or those type of classes moving forward. And so one of the first options that you'll be choosing on your course registration form, and I'll go over that in a little bit, but one of the first options that you'll choose is your student's English class. And there will be two options for your student. You'll have either English or English honors. And so students in English honors should be comfortable with reading and comprehending above their grade level. And the class really focuses on the writing and research skills, the students' ability to create their own arguments, to create their own logic, and really be able to develop these research skills. And so students in the English honors class should have strong time management skills. They should show initiative and be self-directed and have a natural curiosity for learning. So a lot of the students that are going into honors English should have this, self-directed drive to do well in some of these classes. The reason why we talk about honors is because we want to think of honors as a pathway for when students go into high school. And so for some of you, your students are in sixth grade. For others, your student is in seventh grade right now. And next year, you have one of two options, like I mentioned. You have the English class, and then you have the English honors class as represented here on this image. For students that go into English honors, whatever year in middle school, let's say in seventh grade, they then have options for eighth grade that will actually impact what classes they have available for them in ninth grade. And so as an example, if your student is in English 6 right now as a sixth grader, and you place your student in English 7 honors next year, then they will, as long as they do well in the class and they try and enroll again and get a teacher recommendation to go into the honors class, they would then be able to go into the English 8 honors the following year. And then afterwards, they can have the option of going into English 9 honors in high school. And so what this does, it allows students to choose a lot more options when they get into high school that might be in line or at college level courses. And so for those students that really already have a plan in mind on what they want to do in their future and know that college and university is what they need to do to get to it, taking these courses will actually help them eliminate some of the classes that they need to take later on in college, as long as, of course, they pass some of those exams. And so really what honors does is it opens a lot more options for students to be able to take higher level classes later on. Now, you know your student best and your students know themselves best. And so if your student knows that they struggle with reading, if they know that they struggle with writing and creating essays, then there is no shame in placing them still in English class. As long as you have that conversation with your student about what it is that they need to improve and finding ways to help them create that improvement so that the next year they can go into that honors class. And so really, even though a student might not go into honors next year, they can still have those options later on. Similarly, when it comes to choosing classes for next year, math will also be a class where students receive a choice. And so when you're speaking to your student, you really want to talk about whether or not they feel strongly in math or whether they feel like they struggle with it. And so again, you have two different options depending on what grade level your student is going into. For those families that have a sixth grader and going into seventh grade, you're going to have the choice of Math 7 or Math 7/8 Accelerated. Math 7/8 Accelerated is a math class that goes through all of seventh grade math and then half of eighth grade math. So it's basically a year and a half of math that is covered in 1 year. As an example, students usually go through maybe 2 or 3 lessons a week. In the Math 7/8 Accelerated, they'd be going through maybe 4 or even almost every day lessons in the math class. And so it goes through really quickly. It's a fast-paced class that would, if they continue on that path of math, could actually help them reach calculus or statistics their senior year of high school, which are, again, two different classes that are college level courses. For those families that have a seventh grader going into eighth grade, you also have two options. You have the Math 8 choice, or you have the Math 8 Accelerated Math 1 class. That class is the second half of eighth grade math, and then all of ninth grade high school level math. For students that complete the Math 8 Accelerated Math 1, those students end up actually finishing their first year of math for high school. And so when they get into high school, they start off their second year of that math class. And so students might have like a leg up and they might have more options again for the type of classes that they can take when they get into high school. And so for those students that are in this class, they should really be well organized, self-motivated, and willing to challenge themselves academically as well. An easy way of thinking about it is this image right here for the math pathways. So again, if your student is a sixth grader going into seventh grade, you're going to have two options available for you. You have the Math 7 and you have the Math 7/8 Accelerated. Again, the Math 7/8 Accelerated is a year and a half worth of math material shrunken down into a year. And then if they are able to show mastery in that, they would then be placed in that Math 1 Accelerated class. Otherwise, they might be placed into the Math 8 class. Now, with both pathways, student might have the option of taking an AP course, but for those that are going through the Math 7/8 accelerated route, they might get to that AP course faster than other students that took the Math 7 and then the Math 8 and then the Math 1. And so really you want to think of honors classes as being kind of like this middle ground between regular classes and what are called AP or placement classes. And so advanced placement classes are really the classes that give those students the college credit for, if they want to get into college or university later on in after high school. And so when it comes to placing students in honors courses, you have to take certain things into account. I do apologize. I hear a little bit of tinkling. If everybody can just check to make sure that they are on mute. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to place them in the comment box. We'll go ahead and go through them at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. So the placement for students in courses will depend on a few things. It'll depend on the teacher recommendations, your students' academic history, so how well they did in each quarter, your students' local test scores, Your parent request, which will be seen through the registration form, or the course request form, I should say. Your student's interest, meaning is your student interested in taking that class? Do they feel ready for that class? Or is there some form of hesitation or feeling of like maybe not next year? And then finally, course availability. And I really want to emphasize the course availability. Our classes are usually capped at about 37 students. And so if we have 80 students that really want to get into an honors class, um, the most that we would have is two classes combined of 74 students total. That means that at the end, we will need to make final decisions on those, which six students might not be able to go into the honors courses. So although an honors class is chosen as a request, it is not a guarantee based on, the level of competitiveness, excuse me, of the other participants as well. All right. Now I'm going to go into the options for electives. So right now we have two different options for electives at two different campuses. We have those electives that are at the Royal Oaks campus, and then those electives that are at the Duarte High School campus. Now, your student's choice of electives might be impacted based on their CS Arts classes, if your student is attending CS Arts next year. If your student is not attending CS Arts next year, then they have the options of either taking an elective here at Royal Oaks or over there at Duarte High School. And so those options include beginning band, advanced band, leadership, science Olympiad, Spanish, STEAM, yearbook, and visual art. And then at the Duarte High School campus, we have the options of choir, culinary, Spanish, STEAM, and art or photography. And I'll go through those options right now. So for beginning band, it is for grades 7th and 8th, and they are introduced to various different instruments, and the students end up choosing one to practice and learn and develop the skills necessary to play that instrument. They perform in different concerts for parents and families, and past performances have included things like Day at the Park Festival over at Knott's Berry Farm, winter concerts, and Angel Baseball Stadium as well. Again, for those students that are interested in doing, some form of post-secondary education, like college or university, and playing instruments is really seen as a positive for a lot of those. Uh, Sorry, I lost my train of thought. A lot of those applications for when students are trying to apply for college. And then advanced band, very similarly, is for grade 7th and 8th. The prerequisite for this is director approval, which means that the teacher, Mr. Renes, needs to approve of students going into this class. The reason for that is because the musical styles are more difficult in the advanced band class. And so for students that might already know how to play an instrument, they might have the chance of getting into the advanced band class. What I've normally seen happen is Mr. Renes has almost like a tryout for students to see where their levels are at in terms of how well they play. And so advanced band, similar to beginning band, they perform at concerts, band festivals, and other community events, such as the Winter Concert, Day at the Park Festival, Angels Baseball Stadium, and even at the Duarte High School football games. We also have choir. This class is specific to Duarte High School for sixth period only. And so choir and chorus are classes where students learn how to read uh, vocal work or vocal notes, and they learn basic choir skills. And so they do perform at local functions that would not conflict with conservatory classes. They also have an advanced choir class over at the high school. So if your student takes choir class, they have the opportunity to go into the advanced choir class once they get into high school. And some of those students have sung at the Walt Disney Concert Hall, Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, Paramount Studios, and Angel Stadium. Now, I really want to emphasize for those classes that are going to Duarte High School, those students are going to be bused over to Duarte High School after their fifth period, going into sixth. Um, but the student needs to be picked up from Duarte High School at that time. So although they might be, here on our campus, they would then be transported over to Duarte High School, and they would then have to be picked up there. This is similar to all the other electives that take place over at Duarte High. Similarly, culinary class is a class that is offered that also occurs over at Duarte High School. Students learn cooking skills in groups or teams, and they learn recipes and styles of cooking during the class. And so, because they are working in a fully functioning kitchen, students do need to be responsible in order to be in this class. So, it's really important that for students that are interested in doing culinary, that they understand that the expectation is that they are responsible and they're not really like, fooling around or joking around with some of the equipment. Next up, we have leadership. Leadership is also a seventh and eighth grade elective course. It offers students opportunities to develop skills and behaviors of a positive leader. The students in leadership classes usually are the ones that conduct school activities, such as our school dances, our lunchtime activities. Some of our spirit weeks are also spearheaded by our leadership class. And so they really start to build these kind of leadership abilities during this class. For those students that want to become an ASB official, like ASB president, vice president, or secretary, or whatever the case may be, if your student tries out for a position and actually ends up getting the position, your student would then be enrolled in the leadership elective automatically. The reason why I mention this is because I've had it, I've had different cases where a student is in, let's say, band class, and they tried out for becoming ASB president, and they got ASB president, and so they were moved from band to leadership, and so they, realized, oh, I don't really like this. I want to stay in band. So it's really important that if your student wants to try out for an elected officer position, they understand that they would then be placed in the leadership class in order to participate as that position. Students must maintain a 3.0 GPA in order to stay in leadership. 3.0 GPA is basically an average of Bs all throughout classes. All right. Science Olympiad, I'm going to go ahead and play this video as I am speaking, just so that you can see a little bit of visual in terms of, what students might do in this class. So this is a class around 20 or 15 to 20 students that compete in 23 different events during the month of March against other middle schools and high school teams. So we have over 7,800 middle and high school teams that participate from 50 different U.S. states, and they really run the gamut of scientific disciplines that they go through to kind of prepare for this competition. Our students this year actually placed sixth in in our area, and they're actually going to Caltech to continue their competition against other schools throughout California. And so we're really proud of them. And for this class, it is recommended that students maintain a 3.5 GPA, which is an average of an A minus to B plus. On the video right now, you see students that had to construct a roller coaster using paper. And so they had to build a fully functioning roller coaster in the allotted time. And so they really, again, run the gamut of different kind of science disciplines. So like design, engineering, mechanical engineering. They had to do earth science based, talking about meteorology, really a lot of different disciplines. And so for those students that are really interested in pursuing scientific discovery or some form of science-based occupation, this class would definitely be a class that I would highly recommend. You do need to make sure that your student is willing to commit to one Saturday during the spring for this competition, and they have to have a strong interest and desire to work independently and as a group in a highly competitive environment. All right. Spanish class. Spanish class is either going to be at Duarte High School or Royal Oaks. We're trying to get Spanish class in both places. And so students in the Spanish class will be learning Spanish reading, writing, speaking, and listening to be able to take Spanish 2 when entering high school. It is advised that for students that are planning on attending a college or university after high school, that they do need to take either, some form of foreign language, either Spanish or if the school offers French or Chinese or whatever, that the student takes a minimum of 2 years of that same language. And so for those students that take Spanish 1 here or over at Duarte High School, they would then be able to enter high school as Spanish 2 and then possibly take AP Spanish their third or fourth year in high school, which would provide those college credits so that the student doesn't necessarily need to take that class when they get into college or university. Next up is STEAM. STEAM class is similar to Science Olympiad in that it is a science-based elective that explores different facets of scientific discovery. More recently, they focused on computer science, electrical engineering, and manufacturing engineering, and they really work more on hands-on projects. So most recently, our students worked on 3D printing, coding language, electrical engineering, and circuit work as well. So really a full gamut of different science disciplines. Visual arts is also offered either here at Royal Oaks or at Duarte High School. And so visual arts class is structured to introduce students to an overview of visual arts. And they really focus on the development of art appreciation, creative expression, aesthetic valuing, and awareness of historical art and cultural context. These classes are based on the model of project-based learning. What that means is basically a student finishes, let's say, an art project, they turn the art project in, and then their teacher gives them notes on edits based on that artwork that would then need to be improved on and turned back in. And so it really is like a learning process for students to kind of improve their art style as well. And then finally, yearbook. Yearbook is a seventh and eighth grade elective that is based on teaching students learning digital photography, desktop publishing, and really developing these skills of yearbook production. And so for students that want to really practice their photography skills or want to learn about running through different programs to publish works, this class would definitely be a facet for them. All right. So those were our electives. Before I turn it over to questions, I want to show you guys a few things. First off, just some general important information. Again, for those students that are going to CS Arts next year, depending on your conservatory, you may have to take a 6-period elective over at Duarte High School. Now, as of right now, I do not know exactly which conservatory students are going to be here and which ones are over at the high school. For this year, for example, I know that we have the integrated arts, visual arts, and musical theater here at our school, but I do not know if that is a plan for next year as well. Most likely it will be, but I do know that for some conservatory classes like music, jazz, as well as set production, those classes might still be over at Duarte High School. And so depending on your conservatory that your student might be going into next year, as depending on whether your student is going to CS Arts, they will need to take a 6-period elective over at Duarte High School. All electives at Duarte High School are during 6th period. So again, those students that are going to Duarte High School will be transported after 5th period here over to the high school, but they will need to be picked up over at the high school by yourselves. Again, as a reminder, for math and English, advanced levels will be based on their grades and teacher recommendations as well as the things that I mentioned, test scores, your students' motivation, your parental request, and then the space availability. So again, if we only have space for 64 students or 74 students, but we have 80 students that want to get in, we do have to make those difficult decisions on which students can go in and which ones we need to put on a wait list. Counts are I will be placing students based on top 4 choices. I'll show you guys what the actual form looks like in just a little bit to kind of show you. But basically, this Sunday, a message will be sent out to parents through Parent Square so that their students can, or so that you and your student can choose your 4 different elective choices. These four choices, I would request that they be different for each one. The reason for that is because previously I know that there have been a few students that tried putting the same elective 4 times, but if that specific elective is full, then we would need to place a student in whatever is available to place them in. And so it's really important that they make sure to choose their top 4 choices when they choose their elective. The placement for electives is based on availability and scheduling conflicts, and student schedules will be available in August during registration week. We ask that there be no schedule changes once school begins, as we need to balance out classes during the first few times. And so just to kind of show you what the next steps are. So March 22nd is today. We're having this parent meeting to go over these electives. In the next 3 days, I'll also be presenting to students to give them these options. I already went into some of the 6th grade classes already to kind of give them this information. On March 26th, which is this Sunday, course selections will go live. And so you'll be receiving a Parent Square message on Sunday to give you access to the links to go in and register for classes. On March 31st, next week, Friday, the course selections are due. And so during that time, or between now and March 31st, we ask that you please make sure to complete the course selections during this time period. Registration week will be from August 1st through the 4th, and then August 10th is our first day of school. And so I want to show you guys how each registration form will look like. If your student is going from 6th grade to 7th grade, you will be filling out the form that goes through, that looks like colored pencils, like this one right here. If your student is going from 7th grade to 8th grade, your form will look like the mosaic coloring right there. So again, 6th grade going into 7th grade, you'll go to the one that look like colored pencils, and then 7th grade going into 8th grade will look like the mosaic right there. All right. And so on the screen right here, you see we have included our contact information. You have the principal, Dr. Tamanaha, our assistant principal, Miss Angelina Salas, and then myself, Edgar Navarro. So if there are any other questions after this presentation, you can feel free to message us. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I do see here that we have a few questions on our Google Meet. And then I'm also going to be showing you guys, oh, actually, hold on. Let me show that first. I do apologize. I want to show everybody that's here how the registration form will look like, just so that you have a better idea of what to expect. And then I'll go through the questions that I see here in a little bit. So like I mentioned, for those students that are in 7th grade going into 8th grade, this is how your your course selection form will look like. So if I go scroll through here, on the course selection form, there's actually going to be a hyperlink right here that'll give you the descriptions of each class available. So if you came into this presentation a little bit late, you can feel free to click on that, and it'll actually list out the different classes and what each class kind of focuses on. You also have right here, you'll be placing your email, and then you'll be placing your student's last name, your student's first name, and then again, you will be choosing the placement for English for either English or English honors, and then math as well for Math 8 and Accelerated Math 8/Math 1. This area down here is where you will choose your elective courses. So again, speak with your student about which electives seem to be, the ones that they would prefer, and make those 4 different options. After that, you'll determine or you'll place your determination of whether or not you're interested in joining ASB or student council, the position in which you or your student would be interested in joining, and then of course, consent showing that you and your student went through this form, your last name, first name, and then a contact number in which I can best reach you at in case I have any questions regarding any of the selections. So again, this is for 7th grade going into 8th grade. For 6th grade going into 7th grade, it will look exactly the same. It'll have the same order of questions and the same things being asked of you. All right. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you all for your